This is Pastor Randall Neal, Zion Lutheran Church, and today is Tuesday, July 7th, 2020. And today we're going to be looking a little bit at some of the thoughts that I have for our weekly devotion that hopefully will make you think a little bit, give you some encouragement and some hope that we have as sons and daughters of God. Can I ask you something? Are you as sick and tired of this COVID-19 pandemic world that you and I are currently living in as I am? Yeah, me too. Let's not forget the incessant bombardment of watching folks rant and rave about one unjust thing after another. It's old already, isn't it? Now, I'm not saying for a moment that things folks are upset about don't have some merit. Many do. But then again, many don't. Now, regardless of the details, all the unstable, tense, and uncertainty of what our immediate world around us is getting to us, isn't it? As I talk with and visit various folks, I hear a repeated theme coming through. It's the word fragile. Fragile. Folks are feeling fragile. They're feeling brittle, short of temper, frustrated, and even angry just below the surface. And trying to hold things together is getting tougher and tougher, isn't it? People are weary, physically, emotionally, and even spiritually. Can you relate to those feelings? I can, and I don't like it. So, after going on about all the ain't it awfuls, I ask you, what can we do? What should we do? What kind of help is available to us? How should we be going forward with our lives? I want to share a few thoughts about facing our future. Here's the punchline, give it to you up front. I like to do that. It's this: God is in control, my friends. God's in control, and He cares. He can and will provide what we need to make it through and perhaps even thrive. And that's a good thing. One of the great names for Jesus in the Bible is the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Now, when one of my favorite authors, C.S. Lewis, created a character to be his Christ-like figure in his Chronicles of Narnia fantasy books, made into movies, of course, he introduced us to Aslan, the lion, king of Narnia. Well, just to give you a little side idea of how much I respect C.S. Lewis, my wife Elizabeth and I named our very first dog after we were married almost 50 years ago. It was a Yorkshire Terrier. Guess what we named him? Narnia. Narnia, we did. Well, in Lewis's enchanting books, Narnia is a land, not a dog, but it's a land where the animals speak, where forces of evil are strong, and where Aslan, though only seen on rare occasions, is the dominant figure. Lucy, she's one of the children in the stories who is transported to the land of Narnia. And in one of the latter books in the Chronicles, Lucy is finally reunited with the Lion King Aslan. And I'll let C.S. Lewis take it from here. Here's what he said in his book. "Welcome, child." Lucy said, "Aslan, you're bigger." And he answered, "That's because you are older, little one." "Oh, not because you are?" Lucy said. "Oh, I am not," Aslan said. "But every year you grow, you will find me bigger." My friends, that's your King's plan for you. That every year you grow, that you'll find Him bigger. Because that's the kind of God you have if you belong to Jesus Christ. You can never reach His limits. He has none. He's all those omnis the Bible scholars talk about, you learned in catechism, we talk about in church. You know, omniscient, that is, there's nothing He doesn't know. Omnipresent, that is, there's no place where He isn't. Omnipotent, there's nothing He can't do. And the list goes on. The problem is this strange tendency we have is the more challenging times in our life, that the bigger the issue is, the smaller our God seems to be to us. The problem looks unsolvable. The need looks unmeetable. The mountain unmovable. And we end up handling the hard times as if our God is too small to handle this one. Now, for all of us God shrinkers, and I put myself in that category, not proud of, the Old Testament prophet Jeremiah has these encouraging words for us. Begins chapter 32, verse 17. And this is a prayer that Jeremiah is speaking. It's a wonderful prayer. It's a powerful prayer from the prophet Jeremiah. And perhaps it's a prayer that you need to be praying right now in the face of something that's overwhelming. Here's what Jeremiah wrote. Ah, sovereign Lord, you made the heavens and the earth by your great power and outstretched arm. Nothing is too hard for you. O great and powerful God, whose name is the Lord Almighty, great are your purposes and mighty are your deeds. Now, listen to God's response. Jeremiah writes, Then the word of the Lord came to me. I am the Lord, the God of all mankind. Is anything too hard for the Lord? Now think about that. Because that's the hope that you and I have, my sons and daughters of Jesus, friends, siblings in Christ. Think about it. When your problem seems to get bigger than it's ever been, does it get harder for God to deal with? When the finances are greater than you've ever seen, does it suddenly get harder for God to supply our needs? When your medical condition gets worse, does it get beyond God what God can handle? If the person you've been praying for so long seems to be getting further from God than they've ever been, did God's rescue challenge suddenly get a lot bigger? When the issue with your child or your spouse or your parent take a turn for the worse, is it suddenly harder for God to pull this out? Well, my friends, for every question like that, watch my lips for the answer. No, no. Nothing is too hard for the Lord. Nothing is too hard for the Lord, including your thing. It gets bigger and harder for us. That may be true. But there's no such word as hard in the vocabulary of God. Now, when the ancient Jews saw the size of the people and the defenses in the promised land, they obsessed on how big their problem was. And it was a big problem, that's true. But they totally forgot how much bigger their God was. And they ended up in the wilderness for a long time. And sad to say, so do we today, my friends. You may be stressing and sinking and even sinning right now because you're underestimating your God. You're under-trusting Him. Faith, my friends, faith is the key that unlocks all the great things God has for you. And He isn't about to let your faith stay the same size. He's in the faith enlarging business. He's let something come into your life that defies human solution, that overwhelms human answers, so that you can experience how big your King really is. When the bad news gets badder, your God does not get smaller. He's still the sovereign Lord, the great and powerful God. So let yourself be overwhelmed by the God we have, and you'll find that nothing but Him is truly overwhelming. Thanks for joining me today. I hope and pray that you're able to think and ingest some of these thoughts and to rely on that powerful, loving, and caring God. Amen.